Good evening, everybody. My name's Amanda Nichols. I'm the Our Revolution's Communications Director, and I am honored to welcome all of you to our live Organized to Win call tonight. Be sure to drop your name and where you're from in the chat so we can get things started. The Democratic primaries are fully underway, and we're backing movement allies who will fight for our values from City Hall to the halls of Congress. In just a few moments, we'll hear from some of the most exciting candidates on the ballot right now. We'll have Tom Steyer for California governor, Janice Lewis George for DC mayor, three champions for working folks running for Congress, Eric Jones in CA4, Aisha Wahab in CA14, and Matt Dunlap in Maine 2nd. And we'll also have Brandy Markman for San Francisco School Board. So this is going to be an energizing and action-focused call, and we are really glad to have you all with us. If you haven't yet, say hello to the Our Revolution community by introducing yourself in the comments on our socials or in the chat here on our Zoom. Tell us your name, where you're from, and why you're tuning in tonight. With that, let me check on the chat, actually. We've got Barry in Toledo, Ohio, KB in Central North Carolina, Mary from Maryland. We have Laverne in SoCal, Stags in Phoenix, Michael in Tucson. We've got a howdy folks from Elgin, Illinois, from Jose Alfonso Villalobos. Bonnie from Santa Cruz, Auntie Carol in Maryland. We've got Diane in Miami and Sandy in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Folks from coast to coast and everywhere in between, welcome. My name is Amanda Nichols, and once again, I'm the communications director here at Our Revolution, and this is our live national Organized to Win call. The Democratic primaries are happening right now, and what we do right now will determine what happens in November. The ballots are dropping, election days are fast approaching, and we're going all in to get out the vote for movement candidates coast to coast. Tonight, we'll be talking to some of the top candidates in the country right now. We've got Tom Steyer for California governor, Janice Lewis George for DC mayor. We've got three running for Congress, Eric Jones in California's 4th congressional district, Aisha Wahab in California's 14th, and Matt Dunlap in Maine's 2nd. And we have Brandy Markman for San Francisco School Board. This is how we get our folks into the halls of power and our issues on the front line. So this is how we fire up the base as well, so that we can beat Republicans up and down the ballot in November. It's going to be an amazing call, and I want to give a few more shout outs from the comments. We've got Sandy, Wendy in Tucson. We've got Jimbo in SoCal. Hello to Alex Ross in Brooklyn, New York. Kathy from Asbury Park. Carolyn in LA. Linda in Arizona. A lot of California folks tuning in. We've got Gordon in Newbury Park, California, Sharon in Berkeley, Edward in Santa Monica, and of course, one of our organizers, Paulina Oberg in Vancouver, Washington. Great to see you. Thank you all for being here. Before I jump in, I want to drop a link to plug our phone bank team. It's really helpful if folks can sign up for just a shift or two. It's really fun. Our team will help you through it all, and we call other progressives and make sure that everybody gets to the polls in these important races. So that link is in the chat. And I want to invite you to become a member of Our Revolution. We rely on grassroots donations to run all of our get out the vote operations and elect progressives like the ones you're going to meet on tonight's call. So if you can chip in $5 or $10 a month, it makes all the difference to the work we do. And before we switch over to Joseph, a few more shout outs. We've got Stan Horowitz saying greetings from Philadelphia, not too far from me right now. We've got Andre Godin in Minnesota, Nina Singer in Florida, Kimmer from Wisconsin, Kate in LA, and Nikhilananda says, aloha, Amanda. Good to see you as well. So it's 8:30. We're going to kick things off. Let me hand it over to our host for the evening, Our Revolution Executive Director, Joseph Gevargiz. Joseph.
Thank you, Amanda Nichols, Our Revolution's Communications Director. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joseph Givargis. I'm the executive director of Our Revolution. I want to welcome each and every one of you to our live Organized to Win call. The 2026 primaries are already underway, and our movement is facing off against a political establishment and big money interests from AI, from crypto, from APAC, and other interests. But they may have the money, but you know what? We've got the many. That's why our revolution is ramping up our people powered organizing all across the country. We are phone banking voters. We are knocking on doors. We're mobilizing in our communities because we know real change comes from the bottom up when we organize and organize to win. And that's what tonight's call is about. You're going to hear from an amazing crop of leaders who are stepping up in this moment with a bold, people powered agenda. And they are building campaigns that are powered by grassroots energy, not by corporate interests. We're going to hear first tonight from Tom Steyer, who's running for governor of the great state of California. You know, if you had asked me a year ago or 2 years ago if our revolution would ever endorse a billionaire, I would have said, hell no. But you know what? This moment is different, and this race is unique. Tom Steyer has put forth the strongest progressive platform of anyone in the field. He's committed to taxing billionaires. He's committed to leading on passing single payer healthcare, and he's committed to breaking up and taking on corporate monopolies. That is a progressive agenda that I can get behind and that our revolution can get behind. And that is part of the reason that we wanted to have Tom on this call tonight. As I've said before, in this race for California governor, the most energizing and most ideologically aligned candidate just happens to be a billionaire. In addition to Tom, we're going to hear tonight from Janice Lewis George. She is running to be the next mayor of our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Janice is a sitting city councilor. She is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, and she is a proven organizer when it comes to fighting for the city's most vulnerable citizens and for fighting on issues that raise the standard of living for all residents, including affordable housing, affordable grocery stores, and other things that people need to succeed. In addition, we're going to hear from Brandy Markman. Brandy is running for school board because we all know that change starts really from the bottom up. And Brandy has been an activist parent. She founded an organizing group in San Francisco to represent parents and hold the school establishment accountable to the needs of students. She is going to be on this call and she's running for the San Francisco Board of Education. In addition to those guests, we're going to hear from three candidates who are running to represent us in Capitol Hill. The first guest is going to be Eric Jones. He's running to represent the good people of California's 4th Congressional District. That's the Napa area. Eric is an entrepreneur, he is a nonprofit executive, and he is taking on a Democratic incumbent who has been in office for over 27 years. We're also going to be joined by Matt Dunlap. He's running for Maine's 2nd Congressional District. This race is important because it is an open race. It is a seat that's being vacated by Jared Goldman. It's a flippable race. It could go red, it could go blue. Our job is to make sure it goes blue. We help win control of Congress, but we also got to make sure that it's not just any old shade of blue, but it's a good progressive shade of blue. And that's why we've got to make sure that we get Matt over the finish line in Maine. And last but not least, we've joined by Aisha Wahab. Aisha is a California state senator, and she is running to replace Eric Swalwell in the United States House of Representatives. Everybody knows that Eric had to resign because of a massive scandal. And we want to replace Eric Swalwell with a true progressive who has a track record of fighting for the people of California in the state Senate. And here's the thing I want to just emphasize to everyone. The candidates you're about to meet aren't just any candidates who are looking for their next gig, looking for another job. These are true activists and organizers, and they are part of our collective movement for change. And here's why that's important. If we want to stop Donald Trump and the oligarchs, if we want to stop the MAGA movement in November, it starts right now with these primaries. And in order to win these primaries, we've got to put forward the strongest candidates, tested leaders who we know will actually fight for working men and women. That's how we're going to build governing power. That's how we're going to take on the corporate interests that dominate our society. And that's how we're ultimately going to win real change for ourselves and our families. So, brothers and sisters, tonight, don't just tune in, and thank you for tuning in, but I also encourage you to plug in, get involved, take action, and help our movement continue to fight the good fight and make progress a reality. There's two things that you can do to help power this movement. There's your talent, there's your treasure. In terms of your talent, if you have some time, we are making phone calls to elect some of the candidates that you're going to meet tonight. We are calling progressive voters, Bernie voters, Warren voters in these districts to make sure that they know who the progressive candidate is and to make sure that they get out to vote and they mobilize their friends and neighbors to vote. But you can help by signing up to join our phone bank force. Just a couple hours, a couple of nights a week will make a difference in terms of helping our candidates get across the finish line. The link is going to be in the chat. Another way that you can get involved or help support our movement is by becoming a member. If you can give one time, that's great. If you can give monthly, $5, $10 a month, that would be deeply appreciated because I want to tell you something. Every single dollar that we raise goes towards powering our GOTV operation or get out the vote operation in this moment. Every dollar helps us make 6 voter contacts. That means through texting, through phone banking, through emailing, through direct voter contact. But that's where the contribution goes. And I want to say this, the contribution is unique, just like you might be a member of an environmental group because it's important to fight on that issue, or you might be a supporter of NPR because you support public broadcasting. In this case, our revolution is unique. We are the only organization that exists to elect progressives from school boards all the way to the chief executives of major cities and states and members of Congress. We're the only organization that does that work day in and day out. And so any contribution you can make will help us succeed in that mission. And with that, I want to check if our first guest is here, Tom Steyer.
I am here. Can you hear me, Joseph?
I can hear you, Tom. Wonderful that you've joined us. As everyone on the call knows, Tom is running for governor of the great state of California. He is running on a incredibly progressive platform. He's made a commitment to tax the billionaires. He's made a commitment to fight to pass universal health care, to stand up to ICE, and to take on corporate monopolies, and ultimately to do all that in the name of making California affordable for regular working people. Tom, we're honored to have you on the call. Tell us a little bit about how it's been going on the campaign trail.
Well, first of all, Joseph, let me say it's hard to believe, but I have been having an absolute gas because my job is really to get out and see Californians. And just in the last couple of days, to give you a couple examples, I got a chance to go through Chinatown on Saturday with a bunch of people who've lived there and their parents and grandparents have lived there. And I've lived in San Francisco for a long time. I've been to Chinatown a million times, but I saw stuff I'd never seen before, and it was so friggin' fun. And yesterday, among other things, I went over to Oakland and I went to a Baptist church and we had a 2.5 hour church service. And believe it or not, it was unbelievably fun. And so my basic point is my job is to try and see as many Californians face to face and look them in the eye, listen to what they're telling me, what their issues are, what their fears are, what their needs are, and then try and make sure that I'm responding to the human beings who live here. And so if you love people, which I do, and you love California and the people who live here, believe it or not, I've had a smile on my face. It's just been, these people, the people in California work their ass off, and they're really talented, sincere, hardworking, great people. And so a chance to meet them and then a chance to try and stand up for them, honestly, I can't imagine anything better, to be honest.
That's great, Tom. So, Tom, let's kind of drill down on some of the details of your campaign. So, one of the things you've surged in the polls, you've begun to consolidate, I would say, the progressive lane. And part of that is because, as you've said on the debate stage, you said in interviews, you promised to be quote unquote a change agent that is going to deliver structural change. And brother, that is music to my ears. That being said, I want to ask you this. There's something that some members have said. Why should we trust a billionaire, someone who's gamed the system, who's maybe profited from the system? Why should we trust a billionaire to
Yeah.
rock the boat?
Well, let me say this. I totally understand why people are skeptical because I'm skeptical too. Because we've seen billionaires be so selfish and so arrogant and so obnoxious that, of course, people wonder if there's a chance for somebody to do the right thing. But let me say this. We need somebody in California who's going to take on the corporate special interest in the billionaires. And the only person who's doing that is me. And that's across the board. I mean, it's the electric monopolies, it's the health insurers, it's the big oil companies, and it's the billionaires. It's across the board. And those people are spending tens of millions of dollars against me, and they're supporting my opponents. And let me say this, I started a business. I started it by myself in a room with no windows. I made a bunch of money and ran it for 27 years. My wife and I have pledged to give the bulk of that money, meaning almost all of that money, away while we're alive, and we've been doing it. I'm not going to end up a billionaire. I'm using any money I made to try, and I have been, to support progressive causes, to stand up for working people, and to protect the natural world from, basically destruction. And so if someone else would do this, honestly, Joseph, if someone else were doing what I'm doing, I wouldn't have to do it and I wouldn't do it. But the truth is, there's no one else who has no conflicts, who's not taking any money, and who's willing to stand up to the special interests in the billionaires and structurally change things to make California affordable for working people and to represent the people who are underrepresented or not represented. And so if you look at who's against me, It really is big corporations, and I could list them, and billionaires. And if you look who's for me, it's progressives, it's environmentalists, and it's organized labor. And, I've got a slew of, including the teachers, including the nurses, but on and on of people who I'm standing up for because I believe in labor as a critical part of a solution across the board. And look, working people can't afford to live in California, and someone's got to stand up for them. And if someone else would do it, I wouldn't have to do it. But I don't see anybody else in this race taking the stands I'm taking or taking on the oligarchs the way I'm taking them on.
Well, taking on the oligarchs, I think, is key to achieving a lot of the policy objectives that you've put forward as a priority. One of the things that resonates with our base in California and nationally is this idea of single payer healthcare. And the truth is, Tom, there's been an incredible amount of organizing that grassroots folks on this call, a lot of our other members have done to try to get single payer over the finish line. They even got then candidate Gavin Newsom to say, yes, I will do this. I will champion this issue, only to be disappointed. That's kind of the story of a lot of us. And we think this is important, not just for California, but also to set an example, a precedent for other states and ultimately for the next progressive president of the United States, right? We've got to win on winning single payer healthcare in California. So help us understand how are you going to deliver where others have betrayed us?
Okay, well, let me go back a little bit in history just so that the people on the call who don't know me can know my history. 3 times in California, I've gone to the ballot box to take on funded corporate special interests who were ripping off Californians. The oil companies in 2010, out-of-state multinationals were ripping off our state income tax in 2012, and tobacco companies in 2016. Every time the legislature failed to do anything. Every time everybody knew this was going on, it was an absolute open secret. And every time the political insiders in the Democratic Party told me, you cannot do this. You will lose. You will make an idiot, an ass of yourself. And we always smashed those guys. And I'm saying this, I was willing to take the corporate special interests on at the ballot box before. I was able to get done what the legislature couldn't get done and what all the elected officials told me was impossible to do. I'm committed, and let me say this, Joseph, I am committed to single payer, and I'll tell you why. People in California can't afford to live here anymore. Over most of the people. And healthcare and housing are the two big things. We literally can't afford not to go to single payer. I mean, it's one of those things where it will be a struggle, and I know that, and I'm committed to it because I know that we have to do it. And therefore, when you say, are you going to basically cop out? Are you promising something, and when the going gets tough, are you going to disappear? The answer is no. And the reason is because I don't think we have a choice. This is the only thing we can do. If you believe healthcare is a right, and you believe that California's got to deliver it fairly to everybody in this state, it's got to be at a price that the state can afford. And that means going to single payer. And whatever it takes to get that to happen, I've got to do. And that's exactly how I see it. I don't see this as one of those things that I can walk away from. I see this as one of those things, however hard it is to get it done, I'm going to get it done. And that's the truth. And it's because I've looked at the systems and I know that the way we're doing healthcare is eating us up. And we really are, if we're going to deliver healthcare as a right, which it is, we don't have a choice. And that means I don't have a choice. And that means I will get it done. And I've done it 3 times before. And you should know I've done it 3 times outside of California just to prove on an energy basis that we could make sure we got progressive energy. And even when I lost, I called him up the next day and said, I might have lost because you guys cheated, but I want you to know something. I'm restarting the program again today for the next time, and I will make sure you guys don't cheat. And they made a deal with us. I'm not going to give up on this.
So, Tom, that's good to hear. These are, again, important issues, not just for Californians, but for all of us as progressives and as people who have been committed to fighting for single payer for many, many years. In terms of the state of the race, wanted to ask you about, you said big money is coming after you, a lot of the corporate interests that your platform challenges are coming after you. And we're also seem to be seeing the establishment Democrats aligning behind Xavier Becerra. And I wanted to ask you, why do you think that is the case in this race?
Well, I know there's been a move towards that, Joseph, but let me say this. Javier has been a politician for 35 years, but he's really never been examined. And what's been coming out since Eric Swalwell disappeared is stuff that's not very savory from the standpoint of anybody who's remotely progressive. And let me give you a few examples. He got a maximum contribution from Chevron. He has been consistently supported by oil companies throughout his career. Within the last week, he has said that Chevron are good guys who we need, literally. And these are the companies who are ripping us off at the pump and polluting both our state and the world. He also is someone who has said he's for single payer healthcare. And behind closed doors, he went to industry lobbyists and told them, don't worry, I'm not for single payer healthcare. And then the healthcare lobby that is absolutely opposed to single payer has announced an IE to support him. I mean, what we're seeing, I could go on in terms of what's coming out about his record. But what I just described to you is classic California corporate control of the agenda, corporate control of the outcome. And look, he's not going to challenge the electric monopolies. He's in bed with the oil companies. He's told us he's not going to go after single payer. You can trust me, I will do nothing. I don't think there's anything about his campaign that is progressive, honestly. And I think that, in fact, his support comes from the insiders, comes from the corporate special interests. And, if you take their money, he's gone out and said publicly he's on their side. But even if you don't say it publicly, it's the truth. And so, look, I think as the information comes out, hopefully people will be able to see that this is not the way we should go. If you want change in this state, you can't do it that way. And so I've said specifically plans, detailed plans, including closing a corporate real estate tax loophole for over $20 billion so we can fund some of the things we desperately need to fund. Nobody else in this race, we're just closing a loophole. I mean, it's not like it's unfair. It's not like anything. Nobody else in this race of the candidates will be on the debate stage has gone along and said that's a good thing to do. No one else on this stage who's going to be on that stage has said that they'd vote for the billionaires tax. So when we look at what's going on in this state, there are a lot of people who are trying to reassure the oligarchs that they'll do nothing. There's one person who's saying, I'm definitely going to try and do everything. And that's me. And so, as we go forward, I'm hoping that Californians are suffering, man. I go around this state, I was saying how great they are. Well, let me tell you something. They can't make ends meet. They can't, millions of people are dropping healthcare so they can make rent. There are people who've been employed in good jobs for 20 years living in their cars. The affordability crisis is a crisis, and there's a reason for it because corporations are driving up prices and making a ton of money doing it. And if nobody stands up to them, then nothing's going to change. And that's what I'm here for, is somebody who's willing to take them on, someone who's willing to make the change. And if they're mad about it and want to spend tens of millions of dollars against me, which they're actually doing, then so be it. You were saying we're not the money, we're the many. Well, I'm standing up to those guys, and I'm hoping that Californians understand that's the only way we'll get a change.
Tom Steyer, our revolution is proud to endorse you in this race, and we're going to be proud to stand with you after you're elected and we pass the agenda that we share in common. And all of our members we're going to be mobilizing them to get out to the polls. Ballots are starting to drop. Votes are starting to get cast. So we're in the end game, and we're with you, Tom.
I want to say this too, Joseph. I'm so proud of being endorsed by you guys. I know that you had to look at me really closely, and I know this isn't enough time to go through all the different issues about this race, but I want to say I am very proud of it, and I tell people it because it endorses me as a true progressive who's not just talking, but who's actually going to get results.
And that's what we're about, brother, fighting for results and true change.
Thanks, Joseph.
Everyone, that was Tom Steyer, candidate for governor. You're going to be hearing more about Tom as we go on this evening and how you can help elect Tom Steyer to be governor. But next up, I want to bring up our another guest. He is running for Congress. His name is Eric Jones. He's running for Congress to represent California's 4th congressional district. This is around the Napa area. He is running against a longtime Democratic incumbent, Mike Thompson, a powerful member of the House, but he's been there for 27 years and has yet to yield his seat. And we think it's time for Mike Thompson to go, and we think it's time for us to elect more true progressives, people who will join with the Congressional Progressive Caucus, our wing within the U.S. House of Representatives, so that we have fighters who will fight for health care for all at the federal level, will fight for climate change at the federal level. So with that, I want to welcome Eric Jones to our call. And Eric, tell us a little bit about the dynamics of your race and your plan to win.
Well, first I'm going to say that's a wonderful picture of me, but I clearly needed a haircut. So, at least for this new phase of my life. If you don't mind, Joseph, I'd like to just do a little background because it influences
Sure.
everything. So, I was a working class kid. I grew up in a small town. My dad is a disabled veteran. My teenage mom raised 3 boys, took care of him. My father, who was an opioid addict my whole childhood. And because of my mom and because I had a good public school growing up and a great community, I was able to be the first in my family to go to college. And that changed everything. And I was lucky to have it fully paid for by folks who were generous. And I say all that because like so much of what I want to do now is give back. My sort of career has been in creating healthcare companies. I've done a lot of work in women's health, a lot of work in mental health. And I worked with the Biden administration on a variety of different pilot programs on how to bring more healthcare into rural parts of America, with a core thesis that we over-rely on the hospital in America, which is a not super caring place at times. They're really important, but they're not the best ways to take care of people. And what we've shown is that you can actually do community-based healthcare, bring healthcare into people's homes, and you can do better. And you can both save money and take care of people, and they're healthier. So what I'm running on is a platform focused on taking care of our parents and taking care of our kids. I'm a dad. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. My wife is a small business owner. She's an architect. And we are very fortunate to live the American dream. But when I look at my future and I look at the future of those in my community, like everyone's worried about how do we take care of our parents? How are we going to do it? How is our community, how's our government going to help? And how are we going to raise our kids? Like those are core questions that have been asked in America for decades, hundreds of years, right? And it is no different today, except that it has never been more difficult today. So
I think it's more difficult to answer today.
And my core platform is Medicare for all, but the reality is Medicare today is insufficient because Medicare, it doesn't cover dental, vision, hearing aids. It doesn't cover any form of in-home care, which is going to be inevitable. So that's the core idea I'm running on is Medicare expansion. And then the thing we all know is obvious, which is childcare. So everyone else is in the sandwich generation, which is basically everybody at this point. And then the other big idea I'm running on is a tax cut for all the middle and working class Americans out there who are suffering. We feel this deeply in California. And whenever someone asks how we're going to pay for it, there's a really simple answer. if we just start enforcing our corporate tax code and close the loopholes, the Swiss cheese that lobbyists have created out of our tax code over the past few decades, we can pay for everything in America. Stop being told that we can't afford everything in this country, because we can. So help kids, help parents, hold corporations accountable, hold the ultra wealthy accountable, and actually raise taxes so that we can have a country back, so we can have the American dream again.
And
that's who I am. Now, the dynamics of the race. I'm rejecting all corporate PAC money, all special interest money. My opponent, by contrast, is the third most corporate funded Democrat in Congress.
the third most corporate funded
over his lifetime. And he continues to take money from folks like PG&E, which I know Tom mentioned, we know very well in California, like Big Pharma, like Big Oil,
utility,
even Big Tobacco. So I find that beyond the pale at this moment in our world. And we have to change. We have to do something different. And I'd like that to be the contrast that's obvious to folks in our race, is corporate and special interest versus someone who's willing to do it the way it should be done and fight for real people.
Eric, our revolution is proud to have your back in this race and to endorse you. And we're going to be doing everything we can to get progressive voters to the polls. And I want to encourage everyone who's on this call, especially folks who are in California, or if you're listening online and you're in California, we're going to be doing California-based phone banks for Eric starting next week. Sign up. The link is in the chat. It's going to take conversations with neighbors, with fellow progressives, in order to beat the establishment in the machine. And we've got a real shot to do it with Eric's campaign. Check out his website to get a little bit more flavor for his campaign. But he's got game, and we just need people power to push him over the edge. Eric, good talking with you, brother.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Our next guest is State Senator Aisha Wahab. Senator Wahab is a member of the California State Senate, where she was the first Muslim elected, and now she is running to replace Eric Swalwell and to fill the seat that Eric Swalwell has vacated. And imagine putting a true progressive, someone who has fought for affordable housing, has fought for childcare, as a state senator in California. Imagine that person in Eric Swalwell's seat. Aisha, welcome to our Organize to Win call. Tell us a little bit about the state of your race.
Definitely. Hi, guys. It's Aisha Wahab. I just want to say I'm very proud to have gotten our Revolution's endorsement in my past elections, but also in this one. I actually have two races. I have the June 2nd regular primary for the full term and the June 16th special primary to it's a short term, couple months. Our race is, I hesitated to actually run just because I see how Sacramento is. I work really, really hard to kind of push bills that really help regular people. And you guys can take a look at my platform, as well as the bills and the policies that I've pushed and gotten across the finish line. This is capping HOA fines. This is really tackling big corporations that hold captive audiences. As you guys know, they provide a lot of misinformation even to their employees. A wide variety of other issues, including a civil rights bill, specifically on caste discrimination, and so much more, including Smile Act, which is giving people a dental implant that was killed because it was seen as too costly for the Medi-Cal patients. So there's a lot that I've done, and obviously more that I want to do. We know that DC is absolutely toxic, especially as a relatively younger, Afghan American, different background, grew up in the foster care system, the whole nine. So we know that we're persona non grata to begin with. I do have the Democratic endorsement. as well as Labor's endorsement. But I was asked very specifically to step aside to have a caretaker role for the primary. And here's the reality: we are the highest polling candidate and the easiest to get to 51%. I represent roughly 55% of the district, the congressional district, as a state senator. So we find it interesting that they were trying to clear the field, and yet they referenced individuals that were deceased to be able to run for the seat, right? They stated that, step aside or else. And right now we're seeing IEs being formed for opponents. And one of my opponents is a millionaire who literally was the lead opposition witness for my cast bill, who has donated to individuals like Laura Loomer, as well as people who support the dismantling of Roe v. Wade and pro-lifers and you name it. This individual gave themselves $1.2 million, saying that there's a groundswell of community support. It was her own money. And she raised the majority of her funds outside of the district, let alone outside of California. And then we also have an opponent who was a BART board member, who is not even running as a BART board member, but some made up title of Director of Healthcare Services. And so we have a challenging race. There is roughly 11 people in the special, which again is 2 weeks after the regular primary, June 2nd. In the regular primary, we have roughly about, I want to say 6 Democrats running. And we have several Republicans that are going to be running. It is a very diverse and also nuanced district. The community also feels very hurt by, the fallout from Congressmember Swalwell and what has happened there. And so I think, the honest truth is that I have said this many, many times. The goal for me has always been to help the most vulnerable community members. You can take a look at all of the bills that I have pushed. It has always been about regular people. I personally think that DC hasn't really delivered for us for decades, right? The last amazing thing that they've done besides the CHIPS Act was the Affordable Care Act, and that didn't go far enough to really service the larger, broader population. And I think, according to our last speaker too, I want to highlight, we have the most amount of 80-year-olds and 70-year-olds alive today. We know that our generation as millennials are a sandwich between taking care of our elders, potentially starting a family, and the average age to purchase your first home is 40 years old. And the fastest growing homeless demographic is our seniors. What are we doing? That is the honest truth. And I've said this, and I'll say it again. If they have money for war, we have enough to feed our poor.
That is 110% right, sister. Our Revolution is proud to endorse you in this race. I know it's a little crazy, a lot of the details. There's 2 different elections and multiple seats. But that being said, we've endorsed you in the past. And I want to underscore that you delivered for your constituents and for our membership as progressives in our movement. And that's why we're proud to endorse you. And we want somebody like you to be fighting for us on Capitol Hill and fighting with us as we advance our agenda moving forward. So Aisha Wahib, we're going to be making calls and doing GOTV for you to get you over the finish line. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys. Again, appreciate it.
Next up, we're going to go all the way to the other side of the country, to Maine, where there is an open seat. United States Representative Jared Golden, a Democrat, conservative Democrat, has decided not to seek re-election. So we've got an open seat, and it could go red, it could go blue. And our job at our revolution is make sure it goes blue, and we make sure it goes progressive blue. And that's why we've endorsed Matt Dunlap for Maine's second congressional district. Matt used to be a state auditor, used to be the Maine Secretary of State, and he was also a OG Bernie guy. 20 in Bernie when Bernie first ran for president in 2016, Matt was one of his state co-chairs in Maine. Matt, welcome to our Organized to Win Candidates Forum. Tell us a little bit about your race.
Well, thank you so much, Joseph, and thanks so much to Our Revolution for helping us with this campaign. It started about a year ago. I was approached by some concerned folks thinking about where we were going as a state, and people were very frustrated by what was happening in Washington, generally speaking, but what was happening in the second district in particular. And our representative, Jared Golden, a Democrat, has been, if you recognize the name, he's often noted as the only Democrat, and the only Democrat, often voting with Republicans on some pretty serious legislation, including his most recent vote as the deciding vote that defeated the War Powers resolution that Congress recently took up. I began talking with folks about it, an enthusiastic response, and because I have a strong background in this, in the state of Maine generally, and the second district in particular. We launched a campaign in early October. Of course, we did get a little bit of resistance. The folks from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee tried to wave us off. And then after Jared withdrew from the race after 4 weeks of my campaign, they began actively trying to find someone else. And they've continued to try to meddle in our politics as they do across the country. But we are very strongly positioned. We're leading in the polls. We've gotten some very strong endorsements in the campaign. I'm going to tell you why in just a second, but Congressman Ro Khanna from California has endorsed, as our former Congressman Mike Mishu, who held the seat for 12 years, and a great number of progressive activists, including Betsy Sweet, who was a candidate for governor and Senate, has endorsed my campaign as well, along with about 100 other current and former elected officials up and down the spectrum have been very, very helpful to us. But the reason why we've gotten such a strong response is because we took a pledge that what we really needed to do is stop talking so much and do a lot more listening to people. And what I have heard in making over 6,000 phone calls over the last few months, is you hear what people are really facing in their lives. You hear about things like access to healthcare, the affordability crisis, many of the things that you've already heard tonight. The student loan crisis, where people just have all this weight on their shoulders. And if we could just get some of that weight off their shoulders, they could really build out their lives and be successful, just like our parents were, and what we want to see for our children. So the healthcare thing is the number one issue I hear about. We talk about Medicare for all, but Eric is absolutely right. We need to do an awful lot better than that. We need to have some type of a single payer form of healthcare. And of course, a stopgap would be actually restore the tax subsidies to the ACA, and why that's so important. I mean, I talked with a friend of mine here on the campaign who told me that, he was paying $560 a month for healthcare. Now he's paying almost $2,700 a month. He said, I can't afford to be without it. I have a heart condition. I've heard so many stories like this. Talked with one of my fellow auditors in our office, talk about retirement. And she said, look, by the time I take care of my son, by the time I pay my bills, I can't afford retirement. I can't put money away. She said, how do people ever get ahead when they're always falling behind? And Joseph, the reason for this is that over the last few decades, the billionaire class and the corporate class with their army of lobbyists have done a magnificent job for themselves in clearing some of the hurdles to their wealth away in Congress. The top nominal tax rate, which, is something that we're always talking about, providing funds for the job creators. And yet during World War II, the top rate was 98%. As late as 1978, it was something like 78%. Now it's 39%. It's been cut in half, while the minimum wage hasn't been raised since 2009 from just, up to just $7.25 an hour. And while many states have done their own work with the minimum wage, the reality is there are 5 states where the federal minimum wage is a minimum wage. How people get by on $7.25 an hour is an absolute mystery to me. When I see people up here in Maine, I stop at a coffee shop on my way to the Capitol. I see a group of people. I see them there every day. Honestly, Joseph, they're not there to have coffee. They're there to get warm. I mean, it gets darn cold in Maine in the wintertime. We can get, well below zero. And this war in Iran is something that's really much on people's minds. The human cost of what's happening in the Middle East is just staggering. And what could happen in Iran if you get boots on the ground, then there's going to be truly a quagmire. But what it's done to the world economy is just turn it upside down. And we've seen the price of gasoline go up 63%. The cost of heating fuel, which is really important in a Northeast state like Maine, we're one of the most heating oil dependent states in the country, going up 80%. Thank goodness we're near the end of the heating season. So what I hear over and over again is that people feel like they've been left behind. They feel like they're not heard, which is why I've gotten so much enthusiasm for my campaign. Just like I say, going out, listening to people. I have a strong reputation in the district. I grew up in a farm in Maine. My parents had 2 businesses. I worked for my folks all the way through college. I worked as a commercial cook for nearly 20 years. I worked in a textile mill. I worked in academic offices on factory floors. I've been a public administrator. I've done a lot of different things in order to make a living. When I got elected to the legislature, my wife and I were each working 2 jobs. I was working 2 full-time jobs when we got married, and I got elected to the Maine House. I was able to serve 14 years as Secretary of State, working on major issues like ranked choice voting, standing against Real ID, which seemed like tilting at windmills at the time. Now I regard it as rather visionary, what's happening with our privacy and what the data centers and artificial intelligence today, what the access they have to our information. I just think fundamentally people will do very well for themselves if we could just level the playing field. I don't begrudge people getting rich. I don't begrudge people becoming billionaires, but they ought to support the republic that helped them achieve that success by supporting those around us who could use a little help, maintaining the public roads, the public schools, working on things like the opioid crisis. And I think together we can get an awful lot done, which is why I'm so proud to be a part of this race. Early on, talking to people who were very scared about what was happening with the Project 2025 document, I talked to an auditorium full of folks, and I said, this is how you affect change. You show up, you get involved, and you stay committed. And as the discussion around this campaign matured, I realized, how can I say that kind of thing to people and not get involved myself, not take what I've learned and become a part of the solution to build a better America that works for everyone and not just the wealthy class that happens to have an army full of lobbyists looking out for their interests in the Capitol. And that's why I'm running.
And Matt, that's why we're proud to endorse you in your bid for Congress. We want to see you as a part of our team on Capitol Hill, the Our Revolution team, part of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And I want to just ask you one question. So the DCCC, which is the Democratic campaign arm, congressional campaign arm, why are they weighing in here? And why are they trying to tip the scales? What are they so afraid of? Shouldn't they be neutral?
Well, certainly most state Democratic parties have a neutrality clause. When I first announced that I was interested in running, I was going to explore the idea. I understood the phone call I got saying that they really would rather I not, that they wanted to support the incumbent. But and I took that under advisement. But what I heard from the people in Maine, the people on the streets, the people in stores, the people in restaurants and the grocery store was like, absolutely, Matt, 100%, we need something different. So I decided to run against their wishes. And of course, when Jared Golden withdrew from the race after the first 4 weeks of my campaign, I called them and said, well, the situation's changed. And they said, well, we'll get back to you. And then they immediately sent a team of people trying to find someone different. I think really, Joseph, what it is we see this happen. It actually happened in our Senate campaign where Graham Plattner, who's just taken the world by storm, got into the race, and the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee did everything they can to push him out of the race. It almost feels like what we did wrong is we didn't ask permission. And the permission I need is the permission from the voters. I don't need permission from the Washington establishment. And actually, if you look what they're doing right now, not just in Maine, but in other districts around the country, this is precisely the reason why Democrats are in the minority in Washington. Because rather than have the voters say, this is what we want for a representative and send them there, they try to tilt the primaries in a way that they can find people who will work most easily with them. So, I mean, they probably have their own reasons, but I'm not paying attention to it. We're leading in the polls. We're actually, the person that they have endorsed, we're actually leading them in fundraising, and it's all grassroots fundraising. I'm also not taking corporate PAC money. I'm not taking money from APAC, just individual grassroots donors, of which we have something like close to 16,000 unique donors averaging less than $50 a piece. And yet we're able to put on a very, very respectable campaign. And like I say, the polling shows that we're going to win this primary and probably win the general election against a very dangerous former Tea Party governor who said he was Trump before Trump was Trump. He cut Medicaid and he withheld voter-approved Medicaid funds to 79,000 people in Maine. He cut revenue sharing to towns, causing towns to sharply raise property taxes. So he is not the answer for a better tomorrow.
And I would say this, we think that the best way to beat the Republicans, right, and beat Paul LePage, who's running for this seat, is to make sure that we have a powerful, progressive candidate who gets what people are going through, and not a party hack or someone who's supported by the lobbyist class. And that's what's happening in this primary. So, Matt, we are proud to endorse you, and I'm about to do an altar call for phone bankers. We're going to be making calls. So want to invite all of our activists who are watching online or here in the Zoom room to sign up to be part of our phone bank team. We're going to be making calls for Matt and the other progressives that you've heard from tonight, because it's going to take voter to voter conversation, progressive to progressive conversation, neighbor to neighbor conversation to make sure that we beat big money in Maine and in California and everywhere else in between. So with that, I want to bring up our next guest, Brandy Markman. Brandy is running for school board in San Francisco. Brandy is a longtime organizer. She's been an Our Revolution member. And she helped found the San Francisco Education Alliance, organization that organized parents to stand in solidarity with students and with teachers. And Brandy is now running to serve on the San Francisco School Board. So Brandy, tell us a little bit about your journey and the race itself.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Yes, as I mentioned, I'm proud to have been an Our Revolution member for 6 years, and it's really the honor of a lifetime to have your endorsement. I'm a public school mom, a former ESL teacher, an ESL program director. I also used to work supporting faculty at San Francisco State University, where I was a proud union member. My campaign has been endorsed by SEIU 10-1, the largest union in San Francisco, and I've also been endorsed by, I know you're a former SEIU.
I am.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah. I've also been endorsed by David Campos, an Our Revolution endorsed candidate who's vice chair of the California Democratic Party. So, as Joseph mentioned, with one thing you didn't mention, Joseph, it was with Our Revolution's help that I launched the San Francisco Education Alliance. And I like I was telling you earlier today, I don't know if I'd be here today if it weren't for Our Revolution. The San Francisco Education Alliance is a group of parents who are fighting for schools that are fully funded, inclusive, and not privatized. And I'm really proud of our work, showing up to school board meetings and rallies for years. And I'm also extremely proud that 2 years ago, we organized to stop the permanent closure of 13 neighborhood public schools. And I'm going to tell you how that relates to my race, because the architect of that plan to close 13 public schools is my main opponent. I am in a David versus Goliath race against an appointed school board member who tried to shut down 13 public schools. And he's also a former charter school executive. He's now the president of the San Francisco Board of Education. He is a charter school executive. And I'm running for office because I don't think charter school executives who try to close predominantly Black and brown schools should be on school boards. He's also a political appointee who filed to run for office 3 times and failed. One of those 3 times, he was funded by 4 pro-charter school billionaires. And one of those billionaires is a man by the name of William Obendorf. What's important about him is that he is one of the MAGA billionaires behind Project 2025, and he was or is Betsy DeVos's successor at an organization called the American Federation of Children. He became her successor when he was appointed by Trump. So this is the person who is supporting my opponent, who is supporting the current San Francisco school board president. Our school board has unfortunately been taken over by right-wing billionaire and tech money, but I believe that I can beat him because I've beat him before. I organized citywide to shut down his school closure plan. We have an amazing army of grassroots volunteers. Many of them are Our Revolution members here in San Francisco, and we're feeling really good about the race and where things are right now.
Brandy,
Yeah.
our revolution as a community is proud of the work that you've done and organized over the years to get this point. And, and it is organizing, our methodology is organizing on the outside with the grassroots and then electing our people to positions of power. And that's what we're looking forward to doing with you and your campaign. So excited to endorse you and to see you make this next step and fight for progress in San Francisco.
Thank you. And thank you for caring about this, like, quote unquote, bat down ballot races, because we know that the right, this is what the right did 5 years ago. They got a lot of Moms for Liberty candidates elected. And as progressives, we need
That's right.
to do that. And why I'm running is because I believe it's important to put kids over politics. I don't think the school board should be a stepping stone to another political office. And again, thank you so much for your support and for really understanding how important school board races are. I really appreciate that.
Brandy Markman, our next school board member from the great town of San Francisco. See you
Thank you.
soon. And our next candidate is, and last candidate for the evening, is going to be the next mayor of the great city of Washington, D.C. Her name is Janice Lewis George, and she has served as a city councilor. And in that role, she has led the fight for affordable housing. She has talked about opening up grocery stores in food deserts. She's fought to make sure that childcare and educational opportunities available to every family that needs it. Janice, we're proud to have you on this call. We're proud to have endorsed you in the past for city council, and we're proud to endorse you in this bid for mayor of DC. Tell us a little bit about the state of the race. You're going up against Kenyon McDuffie.
That's right.
Is also a longtime city councilor, but much more aligned with the business community.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about how the race is going and what the people are saying.
Thank you. Thank you to Our Revolution. Thank you for always being in this fight with me and for our local elections and for our country overall. I'm excited to be connecting with you all. I have, as a third generation Washingtonian and current council member, and I first ran for office because I felt that so many issues the government wasn't doing as much as it could to make people's lives easier. As many people know, DC has had the most massive amount of gentrification and displacement of Black and brown residents. And so we fought hard and created and fought for affordable housing and our earned income tax credit and the child tax credit and the pay equity fund and so many successes. But right now I'm running to be the next mayor of DC because I realize that most of you aren't from DC, but what happens in DC affects the rest of this country. And that's especially true with this authoritarian regime that's in power. What we know about authoritarians is that they try to seize control of the capital city first. And DC has been occupied by the National Guard since last August. But we also know that if the capital city resists, a democracy movement is much more likely to succeed in defeating the authoritarianism. So DC needs a strong mayor who will stand up to Trump. And that's why I got in this race to protect many of our residents who've been kidnapped off the streets from ICE agents as they were going to work or doing their work. Our young people are dealing with National Guard troops outside of their homes and in their communities. And all the while, we are not fighting back in this moment. And so I am standing up not only to fight as the capital city and to make sure people understand that we will be resisting this administration, but also to fight for affordability in our city and this crisis that we are experiencing, and to make government work for all DC residents, no matter what ward they live in the city. I have been endorsed by over 21 unions, immigrant groups, and Free DC because they know I stand up for the people. When ICE was terrorizing DC this summer, I was out in the streets, and on the council, I've introduced legislation to hold ICE and our police force accountable. We're going to end cooperation with MPD and ICE on day one. We're also going to bring universal affordable childcare to DC and social housing. And make utilities more affordable. And unlike my opponent, who is taking big Trump donor dollars, the same people who fought to get Trump elected has funded his campaign. Pepco, Washington Gas, the utilities are all lined up behind him, and many of the union busting businesses and organizers are lined up behind him. So while those union busters and those Trump donors and those Pepco utility companies think that money is going to buy this election, we know that people are going to get this election done because they believe in a people first DC. So I want to make sure people understand that we need you all in this fight with us here in DC to defend the capital city and to make sure that we are able to care for our residents here in DC across the board. So please check out JaniceForDC.com, check out our platform, and please donate. If you can donate, we really would appreciate it. Thank you so much for hearing me out, and thank you to our revolution. Together, we're building a powerful nationwide movement, and I'm so proud to be in this fight with you.
Janice Lewis George, Our Revolution's endorsed candidate for mayor of Washington, D.C. We need Janice to go toe to toe with Trump. And we need Janice to help to be a mayor like the other progressive mayors like Zoran Mandami and the other mayors that we have we have helped elect as a part of this movement. So Janice, thank you for being with us, and we're looking forward to getting out the vote for that election. So again, brothers and sisters, I want to urge each and every one of you to get involved. Don't just watch, take action. If you are able to be a part of our phone bank team, making calls to registered Democrats and independents if they're eligible to vote in primaries. And we're focusing on progressive voters. That's our theory of change. If we can get out the Bernie voters and the Warren voters in key primaries, we can make sure the progressive candidate wins. Give an hour, a couple hours a week, and help us get some of these phenomenal candidates over the finish line, all of whom have a strategic role to play in the lives of their communities, but also the nation. The link is in the chat if you want to volunteer. And if you're not able to give time, you can give money. Give $5, $10. Become a member of Our Revolution. We are small donor supported. We don't take money from big foundations and other large Democratic donor organizations. We're completely grassroots funded to do this work, and we fill a niche. No other organization is committed to electing Berniecrats at every level of government. That's Our Revolution, and your support helps carry us forward. And with that, let's call it an evening and close it out with our chant. When we organize